God's chosen ones, what's coming will shake the world. This is the final step. Chosen one, heaven has opened its war room and your name is written there. The storm is rising, the earth is trembling, but you were not called to hide. You were chosen to stand. When the fire tests, you do not shrink back. For comfort destroys, but the fire refines. Even those who once walked away will return drawn back by the prayers you whispered in the dark. And now, the final step. It is not about fighting harder, but surrendering deeper. When you lay down control, when you release fear, heaven crowns you with peace. The world may tremble, but you will not. Because you have chosen the fire, you have chosen surrender. And in surrender, you rise. The desert burned red, stretching endlessly, as if the heavens and the earth were being swallowed by an invisible fire. The wind howled, lifting massive columns of sand that twisted high into the skies. Thunder roared without ceasing, white flashes lit up the darkness and then vanished, leaving behind a thick shroud of night. Each echo rolled like the beating of war drums, announcing a prophecy that was about to be fulfilled. In the midst of that storm, a lone figure stood upright, Elias, the chosen one. His white cloak was torn by the wind, his thin hands trembling yet still clinging tightly to the old wooden cross darkened by time. With every flash of lightning, his eyes reflected both fear and the faint flame of faith still burning within. Softly into the wind, Elias whispered, "Lord, why have you kept me here in the heart of this storm?" Far away, through the shifting veil of dust, a shadow began to rise. The tempter, a cloak of black covered his body, and only his eyes, glowing red like burning coals, pierced the darkness. He did not move closer, he only watched. With each strike of lightning, his face appeared for a moment, hollow, cruel, wearing a cold, twisted smile. No words were spoken, but his presence alone was enough to send a chill deep into Elias's bones. The storm was not just of sand. This was a battle in the realm of the soul. The wind cried out like the lament of nations. Elias's heart trembled, yet his feet did not move from the burning sands. He knew he was not here by chance. This was a divine appointment. In this vast desert, God was testing him. Would he collapse in fear, or would he stand firm as a witness to the light? A flash of lightning split the heavens, and for an instant, two figures stood in stark contrast. Elias frail, clutching the cross, and the tempter watching in silence with eyes of blood-red fire. In that moment, it felt as though all creation held its breath. Part 1. The shaking. The violent storm over the desert had just faded when Elias stepped into an ancient town. The streets were paved with old stone, the houses covered with roof tiles worn by time. Everything was silent as though cursed, but soon the ground began to tremble. The sound of cracking rose fractures running across the square, tearing through the stones, carrying with them the cries of the people. Men, women, children rushed into the streets, their eyes filled with panic. They fell as the walls shook, roof tiles crashing down like swords from the heavens. Some clutched their children, others wept loudly. The whole town seemed to crumble under terror. Yet in the midst of chaos, Elias stood firm. He found a great stone still unbroken, climbed upon it, and lifted high the old Bible in his hands. His long brown hair whipped by the wind, his white cloak covered in dust, but his eyes shone with a fire of faith. "The world is shaking, but I will not be moved." His voice rang out thunderous and clear. The words carried across the square, drowning out the screams. People turned toward him, and in their frightened eyes a spark of hope flickered. The earth kept trembling. Strong houses crumbled into dust. Elias saw it not only with his eyes, but in his spirit. This was more than an earthquake. It was a warning from heaven. A verse echoed within his heart. "Yet once more I will shake not only the earth, but also the heavens." Hebrews 12:26. This was the final shaking, not to destroy, but to separate. What was built on sand would collapse. What was built on the rock would endure. Elias understood. The town was an image of the world. The people in their panic could not see that collapse was part of God's plan. They saw only loss, but not the promise. His voice rose, his eyes blazing. Beloved, do not fear the shaking. The chaos is not your end, it is your awakening. The words pierced the trembling souls of the people. Some stopped in their panic, their eyes fixed on Elias, sensing in him something unshakable. He continued, every stone that falls, every wall that breaks it, is not destruction, it is revelation. God is showing us what was built on sand, but those who stand on the rock will never fall. A middle-aged man collapsed to his knees, weeping. A young mother held her child tightly, tears streaming, but her eyes glimmered with faith. Hearts began to stir. A lightning flash tore across the sky, illuminating Elias upon the rock. In that moment, he no longer looked weak, but like a beacon of light in the storm. From a distance, the tempter watched, eyes glowing red. He smirked and whispered into the wind, "Let them shake. Let them fall." But his whisper was drowned out by Elias's cry. Do not bow to fear. The shaking is not to destroy you. It is to prepare you. Stand, for you are chosen. The sound was like a trumpet from heaven. The people began to kneel, many lifting their hands toward the light shining upon Elias. In the shaking, they found hope. When the ground finally stilled and the dust settled, silence fell heavy. Elias panted, sweat and dirt covering his face, yet his eyes burned brighter than ever. He raised the Bible to the heavens, his voice steady. The world may tremble, but you will stand. For you are not forgotten, you are chosen. The words sealed themselves upon every heart, and with them, Elias's story turned to a new chapter. The fire of testing awaited ahead, but the shaking was not finished. The earth pulsed like war drums from its depths, heralding a holy battle. Elias stood upon the stone Bible lifted high, yet his heart pounded within his chest. He felt every tremor in his body, as if God himself was showing that true strength does not come from man, but from faith in him. Beneath him, the crowd was still in turmoil. A boy was struck by falling debris, his mother's scream tearing through the air. Elias could not descend in time, but he cried out, "Lift him up, protect him. Do not fear, the Lord is with you." Those nearby rushed to help. The boy, though injured, opened his eyes, and in that moment his mother held him close, sobbing, "Thank you, Lord. Thank you." Elias closed his eyes for a moment. Through thunder and the cracking earth, he heard a voice not of this world, gentle as the wind, yet piercing Elias. This shaking is not to break them, but to awaken them. Stand firm. Show them the rock that cannot be moved. His heart filled with certainty. The words were not only for him, but for all the people around him. He lifted the Bible again and shouted, "This is not destruction, this is revelation. Look around you, the walls may fall, but your soul will not. If you stand upon the rock," the voice rolled like thunder, yet soothed hearts. An old man, trembling as he clung to a wall, let go, knelt down, and lifted his tear-filled eyes toward Elias. At the edge of town, the tempter still watched. His red eyes flared brighter as darkness thickened. He stroked a broken rosary in his hand, beads falling like the ticking of a clock. They will break, Elias. They will curse the heavens when their homes fall. Just wait. Fear will swallow them whole. But even as he whispered, a faint song rose. A woman in the crowd, trembling yet steadfast, began to sing a hymn. Another joined, and then another. The fragile melody became a prayer rising from the chaos. The tempter gnashed his teeth, his red eyes flickering as though dimmed by the light of growing faith. Elias's voice thundered, "Listen, every battle you've faced, every tear you've shed, it was not wasted, it was training. You were not abandoned, you were prepared." The words struck deep. A widow clutching her son sobbed, remembering nights of prayer, in silence, believing no one heard. Now, as the earth trembled, she felt God had answered. A young man, once turned from faith, saw Elias standing strong amid the storm. A fire rose within him, and he cried, "We will not fall, we are chosen." The crowd echoed a chorus rising, "We are chosen, we are chosen." A massive pillar collapsed, nearly crushing a family. Elias leapt from the rock, pulling them to safety. The ground shook harder, dust clouding the air. For a moment he thought he would be buried, but when the dust cleared, he still stood, panting, Bible clutched in his hands. A child looked at him through tears and whispered, "Are you an angel?" Elias bent down, placed his hand on the child's head, and whispered, "No, child. I am just chosen, and so are you." The moment stilled every heart. A deep stirring spread among the people. As the final tremors subsided, the town lay silent. The haze lifted, leaving Elias in the midst of the crowd, Bible lifted high. The shaking has come, but it has not destroyed you. It has revealed you, and what is revealed is stronger than what was hidden. His voice was slow, steady, yet filled with power. The people knelt, tears in their eyes, but their hearts firm with faith. Elias looked up at the sky where the storm had softened and whispered, "Lord, if this is only the beginning, then give us strength to endure what is coming, for we are not forgotten. We are chosen." A gentle light broke through, falling upon Elias and the crowd, and in that moment fear turned to hope. They knew the shaking was not the end, but the beginning of a greater journey. Part 2, Fire of Separation. The trembling of the earth had quieted, but Elias knew this was only the beginning. As he led the villagers away from the shattered square, a strange path appeared before them, a road divided by fire and by shadow. To the left, the darkness was thick like an endless abyss. No light, only whispers echoing cold and hollow. To the right, radiant light poured down. But in the middle, a wall of fire blazed, rolling and surging as if ready to devour anyone who dared to step through. Elias stood before the flames. The hot wind struck his face, tossing his hair, burning his skin. Behind him, the people trembled. They looked at the fire and drew back. Panic rose again, voices crying out, "We cannot go through, this fire will kill us." Elias said nothing. Through the crackling flames, he heard a familiar whisper. From the shadows on the left, the tempter emerged. Tall, cloaked in black, his eyes glowed red like burning embers. His voice rumbled deep and coarse like the howl of the wind. "Chosen one, why walk into the fire? There is an easier path. Come with me. In the shadows there is no pain, no burning, only comfort, only peace." He stretched out a bony hand, broken rosary beads falling and striking the ground. Each bead glowed for an instant before vanishing in smoke. The villagers shivered. Some glanced toward the darkness. Perhaps they thought the tempter was right. That path had no fire, no trial. A few began to step toward him. Elias's heart clenched. He knew that was not the path of life, but the silent road of death. Turning to the people, his voice rang out, "Do not be deceived. That path may look safe, but it leads to death. This fire is not here to destroy us. It is here to refine us." He turned toward the flames, eyes ablaze. Drawing a deep breath, Elias stepped into the wall of fire. The flames engulfed him. The people screamed in terror. But instead of burning, his white cloak glowed brighter, as though purified. Step by step, Elias walked through. The cross in his hands shone golden, joining with the fire. His voice echoed from within the flames, "I choose the fire, for in the fire God is with me." The sight overwhelmed the people. Some fell to their knees, crying out, "We believe, lead us, Elias." But others still hesitated. The tempter smiled, cruel and cold. His voice slithered through the air. "See, only fools walk into fire. Come with me and I will spare you the suffering." A group broke away, walking toward him. The darkness swallowed them. In an instant, they were gone. Only a faint moan echoed back, then silence. Elias stepped out from the flames on the other side, light covering him. He lifted the Bible high and cried, "Choose now, the fire may burn, but it will purify. The darkness may comfort, but it will consume. Which will you choose?" A young man trembled before the fire, whispering, "If Elias can pass, so can I." He drew a deep breath and leapt into the flames. A cry rang out, but when he emerged on the far side, his clothes were torn, yet his eyes shone with holy fire. Others saw and followed. One by one, they stepped into the fire. With every soul that passed through the darkness shrank further back. The tempter screamed in fury, his blood-red eyes blazing. But he could not cross the barrier of light. A young mother stood trembling before the flames, clutching her child. Tears ran down her cheeks. "I cannot. My child will burn from beyond the fire." Elias stretched out his hand, his voice ringing strong. "Your child will not burn, he will shine. Trust and step into the fire." Shaking, she clutched her son, closed her eyes, and stepped forward. The flames roared. The child cried out, but when they emerged, the boy's tears had ceased, and his eyes sparkled with light. The mother fell to her knees, weeping with joy. When most of the villagers had crossed, the tempter roared, spreading his dark wings. He hurled himself at the wall of fire, but the flames surged higher, throwing him back. He shrieked, "This fire will not last forever, I will return." And with that, he vanished into the shadows. At last the fire calmed, leaving only a golden glow upon the path. Elias stood among the people, raising the Bible high, his voice resounding. "The fire has separated us not to destroy, but to consecrate. You are not the same as before. You are refined. You are chosen." And the people cried with one voice, "We are chosen, we are chosen." Their shout rose to the heavens, joining the light that shone upon them. Elias knew they had passed through the fire, but the next trial was still to come. Part 3. The Return. The fire of separation had faded, leaving the path bathed in golden light. The people, weary but steadfast, pressed on. The desert winds had quieted, replaced by a sacred stillness. Ahead, a valley opened wide, and at the end of the road, a radiant gate of light appeared. The light was not blinding, but gentle and warm like a mother's embrace. Golden dust fell from the gate, shimmering like tears from heaven. As each speck touched the ground, it did not vanish, but melted into the weary feet of the villagers, giving them strength to go on. Elias stood before the gate, his heart racing. He felt it. This was not only a passage, but a promise for those who thought all was lost. Among the crowd was Miriam, a widow, frail and thin, her eyes heavy from countless sleepless nights. In her hand she clutched a small silver cross, pressed so tightly that it left marks upon her skin. For years she had prayed for her son, the one who had wandered away lost in sin and shadows. She had wept until no tears were left, crying his name in midnight prayers, only to be met with silence. So often she feared God had forsaken her, but as the light from the gate fell upon her, Miriam's heart beat wildly, and a voice stirred within. "Your prayers were never wasted. Your tears are seeds, and tonight you will see the harvest." She fell to her knees, tears streaming, whispering, "Lord, is it time? Is he coming home?" The golden dust swirled, spiraling like a river of stars, and from the gate a figure emerged. At first only a faint shadow, trembling as if escaping from the abyss. But as he drew closer, Miriam recognized him, her son. His face was gaunt, his clothes torn, his eyes weary, yet holding a fragile spark of light. He collapsed the moment he saw her, his voice breaking, "Mother, I was lost. I was blind, but now I remember." Miriam cried out, a sob mingled with laughter. She ran forward, gathering him into trembling arms. His frail body fell into her embrace as though he had finally found rest. Silence fell across the valley. The villagers stood still, many in tears. Elias bowed his head and whispered, "This is the promise of the Father. The prodigals will return." Miriam pressed her son to her shoulder, weeping, "You were lost, but now you are home. You were broken, but now you are found." Light from the gate poured over them both, wrapping them in a golden glow. The wounds upon her son faded, the stains vanished. His tattered garments became clean, his hollow face renewed with life. It was as if the gate had not only returned him to his mother, but returned him to himself. Through tears, he looked at her, light in his eyes. "Mother, I heard your prayers in the dark. I thought I was alone, but your voice carried me home." Miriam could only weep. Placing the silver cross into his hand, she watched as his eyes shone with strength. The villagers wept openly, some falling to their knees, crying out prayers for their own children, their loved ones still lost. Elias stepped forward, laying a hand on mother and son, his voice ringing, "This is not just one family's return. This is a sign for all of you. Your prodigals are on their way home." The gate of light remained open, golden dust still falling. Elias lifted the Bible high and declared, "Do you see? The shaking was not the end. The fire was not the end. They were the doorway. And now God is opening the gate for the lost to come home." The people wept and prayed, crying out the names of their loved ones. They believed someday their prodigals would also walk out of that shining gate, just like Miriam's son. Elias raised his eyes, burning with holy fire. "Lift up your heads, for this is the hour of return. The prodigals are coming home, and you chosen ones are the lighthouses guiding them back." Voices lifted in song, a hymn of hope rising through the valley. The gate of light shimmered brighter, as if answering the faith that was awakening within them. Part 4. The hidden year's night fell after a long day of shaking. The villagers rested around the fire, whispering prayers, holding tight to the hope that had just been rekindled, but Elias did not sleep. Quietly, he climbed a hill covered in wild grass, where only the wind blew and the vast night sky stretched above. A crescent moon hung, suspended its silver glow, falling softly upon his thin shoulders. Elias sat down, pressing the Bible to his chest, as if it were his very breath. His head dropped, his weary eyes heavy, his face worn from days of battle. Silence. Only the wind rustled through the grass, and his heart pounded heavy and slow. Elias closed his eyes, and memories flooded back the long years he had lived in silence. The hidden years. He remembered sitting alone in a dark room, praying as though no one heard. He remembered nights of weeping until no tears were left, asking God, "Why am I still here? What purpose is there in this silence?" Friends had abandoned him. Family had turned away. Even those once strong in faith had left his side. Elias became an outcast in the very town where he was born. At times he thought he had been forgotten, that those years were punishment. Yet still each morning he opened the scriptures. Each night he whispered his prayers. Some invisible thread kept him bound, faith that never fully broke. On the hilltop, Elias whispered into the night, "Lord, I am weary. My body aches, my heart is heavy. Have I wasted all these years in waiting, or were you with me even when I could not see?" In the stillness, the wind softened. A cricket's song carried faintly like a humble country hymn, and within his spirit a voice arose, not loud, but like a breath. The hidden years were never wasted, Elias. They were the furnace. They were the shaping. When no one saw, I saw. When no one listened, I listened. Tears streamed down his face. He clutched the Bible tighter, his shoulders trembling. Elias lifted his eyes to the sky, where countless stars glimmered. He thought of David the shepherd, forgotten in the fields, with only sheep and a harp. He thought of Moses, 40 years in the desert before he was called. And he realized God always prepares his chosen in the shadows before bringing them into the light. Elias whispered, "So." The silence was not punishment. It was preparation. The words trembled on his lips, yet his eyes shone again. With trembling hands, Elias opened the worn pages of the Bible. His eyes fell upon 1 Samuel 16:7. "Man looks at the outward appearance, but the Lord looks at the heart." He read aloud, his voice breaking in the wind. "Lord, if you looked at my heart all these years, then maybe I was never alone." A tear dropped onto the page, soaking into it like a sacred seal. Elias wept, not in despair, but in the release of knowing he had always been seen. When dawn broke, the sky painted soft hues of rose and gold. Elias sat there exhausted, yet at peace. He no longer saw the hidden years as punishment. He knew that every tear, every whispered prayer had been the stones building the strength he carried now. He rose to his feet, wiped his eyes, and lifted the Bible towards the rising sun. His voice was hoarse yet resolute. "I am ready. If the shaking was my awakening, if the fire was my refining, then the hidden years were my preparation. I will no longer despise them. I will rise from them." The wind swept across the hill, carrying a gentle fragrance like heaven's affirmation. When Elias returned to the villagers, his face still bore weariness, but his eyes blazed with a new fire. He spoke to them, "Never despise the hidden years. They are not wasted. They are the roots beneath the tree, the furnace that forges the sword. What was hidden will one day shine, and what felt forgotten will one day be crowned." The villagers were silent, many with reddened eyes. They understood their solitude, their pain too might be preparation. Elias walked on, certain now that every step in the darkness had led him into the light of this very moment. Part 5. Battle-tested morning had passed, and the sun now stood high. After the long night upon the lonely hill, Elias led the villagers onward. Their path opened into a battlefield long abandoned, a place where the clash of swords, the cries of the fallen, and the screams of war had long been silenced. Wild grass pushed through broken blades, shattered shields, and rusted helmets. The air carried the scent of iron and dry earth, as if the land itself still remembered the blood once spilled there. The people halted, their hearts heavy. Some could not bring themselves to step forward. In their eyes, old memories flickered, battles lost, loved ones buried, dreams broken. Elias stood among the ruins, his gaze sweeping across the field. He knew this was more than a place of the past. It was the mirror of their own souls. Every fight they had endured, every scar left behind, every wound still unhealed. He bent down and picked up a broken sword, its edge worn away, only the hilt remaining. Elias whispered, "This sword once fought bravely, and even broken it carries the memory of courage." He dropped the blade to the ground, then turned to the villagers. "Do you see every scar, every broken piece? They are not signs of weakness, but proof that you survived the battle. You are still here." An old man wept, clutching his chest. He had lost his son in battle, but Elias's words made him cry with both grief and affirmation. Suddenly the wind rose, sweeping dust across the field. Through the storm, the tempter appeared again. His black cloak brushed against broken weapons, his red eyes reflecting off every blade. He laughed, coarse and cruel. "Look at this graveyard of dreams. They fought and they fell, just as you will. You think you've survived, but every scar is proof you are broken, not strong." He stooped to pick up a cracked helmet, then hurled it to the ground, shattering it. "This is what happens to those who resist me. Broken, forgotten, useless." The villagers trembled. Some sank to their knees, haunted by their wounds, believing perhaps the tempter was right, that their painful past was nothing but proof of failure. But Elias stepped forward, eyes ablaze. He lifted the Bible high, his voice rising above the tempter's taunts. "No, the scars are not shame, they are honor. The wounds did not kill us, they crowned us." He strode into the center of the battlefield. his hand resting upon a stone. A beam of light from heaven broke through the dust falling upon him. You call this a graveyard. I call it a testimony. For every battle that should have destroyed us, it only made us unshakable. His voice thundered and the tempter roared, his crimson eyes flickering. A young woman fell to her knees, clutching the scars on her arm. Through tears, she whispered, "Then my scars are not curses." Elias came to her, taking her hand firmly. "Your scars are proof of survival, proof that God was with you in the fire. You are battle-tested." Another young man wept, remembering betrayal that once crushed him. But at Elias's words, he lifted his head, eyes burning. "Then I am not broken. I am prepared." One by one, the people rose. No longer hiding their scars, they began to see them as emblems of honor. Elias turned toward the tempter, his voice strong and steady. "Man sees weakness, but God sees warriors. The world calls us broken, but heaven calls us chosen." Then he raised the Bible high and cried out, "We are battle-tested, and we will not fall." The villagers shouted in unison, their voices thundering across the battlefield. "We are battle-tested. We are chosen." The shout shook the air like rolling thunder, and the tempter staggered back. His shadow dissolved into the swirling dust. Then the heavens opened with light shining upon every broken sword, every shattered piece of armor. In the glow, they were no longer ruins, but radiant stones forming a path forward. Elias stood at the head of the people, his eyes blazing with unyielding faith. His voice was firm yet tender. "You thought your brokenness disqualified you, but heaven says it prepared you. Every tear was training, every scar was shaping, and now you are warriors crowned with survival." The people wept, but no longer tears of despair. These were tears of triumph. As they walked onward upon the glowing path, Elias whispered a message meant for the world. The battlefield is not your grave. It is your testimony. You are not broken. You are battle-tested. The words carried upon the wind, echoing through the ancient land, until it seemed even the battlefield itself repeated them in song. And Elias knew harder trials lay ahead, but within them burned a faith that could not be destroyed. Part 6. The Great Separation. The journey through the battlefield had made Elias and the people stronger, yet it also awakened a deeper pain, not the pain of swords or fire, but the pain that comes from home, from blood, from family. One evening, as the sun sank behind the mountains, Elias stopped before an old house. Inside, a candlelight glowed warmly through the window. He entered and found a long family table, covered in a white cloth filled with bread, wine, and roasted meat. It was a familiar picture of comfort, yet in the air something was broken. The table was divided, one half bathed in golden light, the other half wrapped in heavy darkness, and his family sat in the shadows. Elias saw his father gray-haired, his eyes cold, refusing to meet his gaze. He saw his mother, who once prayed beside him, now turning silently away. He saw brothers and sisters laughing, but with eyes full of mockery. One of them tapped a cup and sneered, "So Elias our prophet returns. Tell us, what did you find in the desert fire shaking ground, or just your own madness?" The table in the shadows erupted with laughter. Their laughter pierced Elias's heart like knives. He sat down at the side of light, trembling hands, resting his Bible on the table. He said nothing, only bowed his head in prayer. "Father, forgive them." Tears welled in his mother's eyes, but she did not move. His father laid a hand on her shoulder, shaking his head. "He has changed. He is not one of us anymore." A sister spoke coldly, "We just want peace at this table, Elias. Stop bringing your fire here. Not everyone wants to burn." The light where Elias sat glowed brighter. The darkness on the other side grew heavier. They shared one table, yet lived in two worlds. Elias closed his eyes. He understood this separation was not chance. It was God's dividing line. In the shadowed corner, the tempter appeared unseen by all but Elias. Leaning against the wall, he smirked, "See, even your own blood rejects you. Was it worth it, Elias, to lose your family for a God you cannot see?" He leaned closer to the table, whispering, "If you just quiet down, if you dim your light, you can have them back. One compromise and this table will be whole again." Elias opened his eyes. Tears fell as he looked at his family. Every word of the tempter struck his deepest longing to be accepted, to be loved, to sit together as before. But within him, another voice spoke, gentle yet resolute. "Do not fear the separation. It is not isolation, it is consecration. Light and shadow cannot remain together." Elias drew a deep breath. He rose to his feet, eyes wet but voice steady. "I will not dim my fire to make you comfortable. I love you, but I belong to the one who called me." The darkness on the far side trembled. Some of his family stood storming away in anger. His mother buried her face in her hands, weeping. His father held her, shaking his head, eyes heavy with disappointment. Elias stood, hand upon the Bible, tears streaming, but the flame in his eyes did not fade. Then a child, his little niece, ran from the shadows, clutching his hand. "Uncle," she whispered, "why is everyone so angry? You're shining. I like the light." Elias knelt, holding her in his arms, tears falling freely. "One day, little one, you will understand. The light hurts those who live in darkness, but it heals those who seek the truth." The child smiled, placing her tiny hand on his cheek. "Then never stop shining." Her words pierced and healed him all at once. Elias knew the cost was real, but so was the calling. As he left the house, the shadows and the light within faded away. He stepped outside, staring at the night sky. Tears still wet his face, but his eyes burned with fire. He whispered, "The separation is not rejection. It is consecration. And though it breaks my heart, I will walk the path of fire, even if it means walking alone." From afar, a wind stirred, carrying heaven's reply, "You are never alone. You are chosen." Elias turned, seeing his niece at the window, waving her small hand. He smiled through his tears, then turned back and walked into the night. Part 7. The Prodigals Cry Out. That night, rain fell softly outside an abandoned house on the edge of town. The windows were shattered, the wind swept in cold and bitter, carrying the stench of mold and shadows. In the small room, only a single candle flickered, its weak light fighting against the heavy darkness. In the corner, a child knelt. Thin, trembling hands lifted toward heaven. Tears streamed down a face stained with dirt and sin. He was a prodigal one who had left his family, abandoned his faith, chasing after fleeting pleasures. Now, everything had collapsed. Friends gone, money wasted, nights of false joy turned into mornings of shame. And in the depth of loneliness, a whisper escaped his cracked lips. "God, if you still hear me, please, don't leave me here." The room seemed to swallow him whole. Rain tapped the broken roof like the ticking of fate. He buried his face in his hands, trembling as he whispered, "I wasted everything. I broke every promise. I left the ones who loved me." From the shadows, the tempter's voice slithered in like wind through a crack. "Yes, you did. You are too far gone. No one wants you back, not even heaven." The child sobbed harder, heart pierced. He believed it because every trace of his life seemed to prove it true. But then, the candle quivered its flame, reflecting against a small, crooked cross hanging on the wall. A faint glow fell across him, gentle yet undeniable. And in the silence, memories returned: his mother's midnight prayers, his father's voice reading scripture, the innocent songs of his childhood. Then a voice within, soft as breath yet clear, "I never left you. You may have run, but I was always here." The child broke down sobbing on the cold wooden floor. His cries shook the small room. Hands trembling, he lifted them higher. "Then please, take me back. I don't deserve it, but I need you. I cannot live like this anymore." The tempter roared with fury. "You're a liar. Every promise you make, you will break again. You will fall again and again. Give up, you are mine." The shadows thickened, the candle nearly snuffed out. Fear gripped him, tearing him apart. But then he remembered his mother's voice reading a verse. While he was still a long way off, his father saw him and was filled with compassion. He ran to his son, threw his arms around him, and kissed him. Luke 15:20. With all his strength, the child cried out, voice hoarse but resolute, "No, I am not yours, I am his." The candle flared, the darkness fled. The tempter vanished, leaving only the howl of the storm outside. A warm glow settled upon the trembling figure. Still on his knees, hands lifted, tears streaming. But now the tears were not only of sorrow, they were tears of release. He whispered, "Father, I'm coming home. Not because I deserve it, but because you promised to love me still." In that moment, the room was no longer abandoned. It became a holy sanctuary, a place where a lost soul was restored. The candle burned brighter. Golden dust fell from the unseen, like the gate of light Elias had once witnessed. The child felt it. His prayer was not trapped within these walls. It rose above the storm clouds, reaching the throne of God. He whispered again, this time with conviction, "I will rise, I will return, and I will never be the same again." Far away, Elias prayed with the villagers. Suddenly he opened his eyes and smiled. He knew somewhere in the night a prodigal had cried out, and heaven had answered. He rose to his feet, declaring to the people right now across the land, "The prodigals are crying out, and heaven is answering. Do not stop praying. Do not stop believing. They are coming home." The villagers wept, crying out the names of their loved ones. And in that broken room, the child wiped his tears, rose to his feet, eyes shining. The first step on the road home had begun. Part 8. Crown of Silver. The road led Elias and the people up a high mountain. Evening drew near, the sun setting low, painting the heavens with strokes of purple and gold, a holy masterpiece drawn by the hand of God. The wind swept cold across the cliffs, yet none turned back. All gathered around Elias, their guide, looking upon him with reverence. But Elias was not the same as before. His hair had turned silver. Deep lines marked his face, carved by time and trial. Yet his eyes burned bright, and as the sunset crowned him, the light glimmered on his silver hair like a holy crown. The villagers whispered, "Look, the silver crown." Elias touched his hair, gently sighing. He remembered the words often spoken, "Age is decline. Wrinkles are weakness. Gray hair is the end." But in that moment, a voice thundered within his spirit. "Your age is not your decline. It is your coronation. Time has not weakened you. It has crowned you with wisdom." Tears filled Elias's eyes. He lifted his gaze, letting the last light of day turn his silver hair into a halo of glory. He raised the Bible high, his voice rolling across the mountain. "Do not despise the years that have passed. Every wrinkle is a war medal. Every gray hair is a crown. Every loss, every tear, every battle survived, they are the treasures of heaven." The people wept. An old man leaned upon his staff, trembling, pressing a hand to his chest. "Then we are not useless. We are crowned." Elias nodded, his voice deep and strong. "Yes, you are not retiring, you are refiring, not forgotten but chosen for such a time as this." From the rocks the tempter appeared once more, his laugh cut sharp as a blade. "Crown of silver, ha! All I see are frail bodies, brittle bones, breaths numbered. What use is wisdom when strength is gone?" He stepped forward, hand outstretched toward Elias. "Lay down your crown, old man. Rest in the dust where you belong." Elias did not answer at once. He stepped upon a high ledge, his cloak whipping in the wind. He lifted the Bible, eyes blazing. Strength may fade, but authority grows. Flesh weakens, but the spirit burns brighter. You see bones, but heaven sees warriors crowned with wisdom. The tempter roared, but the light of sunset struck him, his form flickering, shrinking against its fire. A woman sank to the ground, face in her hands. I thought my years were wasted. I thought my time was over. Elias came down, kneeling before her, hand upon her shoulder. His voice tender, your time has not ended. It has crowned you, every prayer you whispered in the night, every tear shed for your children. They are jewels in your crown. Wear it with honor. She lifted her face, the light shining upon her silver hair, and to the eyes of all she too shone with a crown of silver. The people fell to their knees, weeping in awe. Elias stood upon the ledge once more, the winds roaring, the sunset blazing. He lifted his hand toward the horizon. The world calls you weak, heaven calls you crowned. The enemy sees frailty, God sees fire. This silver crown is not surrender, it is authority. His voice thundered, and in that moment they saw Elias not merely as a man, but as a king in the spirit, wearing the crown of heaven's silver glory. The tempter vanished into shadow, unable to withstand the light. The sun faded, yielding to the stars. Elias lowered the Bible, his voice soft. Now every wrinkle is a story, every scar is a testimony, every gray hair is a crown. Wear it with joy, for heaven rejoices over you. The people lifted their voices in song, a hymn of triumph, rising from the mountain's peak. The sound rolled down the valley, echoing through the cliffs, proclaiming, time does not take away, time bestows. Elias smiled, tears streaming, and whispered, I am not in decline, I am crowned, and with this crown, I will rise again. Part 9, the final step. The night had passed, dawn broke. But this was no ordinary dawn. The heavens opened, the clouds dissolved, and pure white light poured down, covering the earth like heaven's own robe. The people fell to their knees, faces hidden in their hands, for the light was too radiant to behold. No other color remained, only white, as if every shadow, every fear, every burden of the world was swept away in a single moment. Elias stood in the center, his heart pounding. He had led them through shaking ground, through fire, through separation, through the cries of the prodigals, through the silver crown of time. But now he understood all of it had been leading here to the final step. A voice spoke not from the sky, but from within his soul. Elias, you have stood, you have fought, you have wept. But now comes the final step. Not striving, but surrendering. Tears streamed down his face. He was accustomed to fighting, to enduring, to standing firm when the world shook. But surrender, to let go of everything, that was the hardest of all. He lifted his gaze toward the open heavens, white light flooding down. His heart trembled. Lord, I don't know how. I thought strength was doing more, holding tighter. The voice replied, tender yet mighty. No, my son. Strength is in letting go. Victory is in surrender. Elias fell to his knees. His hands clutched the worn Bible, trembling. Tears dropped upon its pages as he whispered, I surrender. The words echoed not only in the air, but in the souls of the people around him. They too wept, their voices breaking, rising in unison. I surrender. I surrender. Not words of defeat, but of victory. From the distant darkness, the tempter screamed. He tried to step into the white light, but the moment he touched it, his form dissolved like ashes on the wind. No, not surrender, anything but surrender. His cries vanished forever. The villagers opened their eyes. Everywhere was light and no trace of shadow remained. Elias felt a freedom he had never known. Every weight fell away, fear of failure, the burden of leadership. the pain of family's rejection, even the scars of the past. He breathed deeply, but his breath was no longer heavy. His heart was as light as a feather. The voice of heaven spoke again. Now you are unshakable, not because you are strong enough, but because nothing can separate you from my love. Elias smiled through his tears, then let it be known. I am yours forever. A young boy in the crowd looked up asking, "So, we win by surrendering?" Elias placed a gentle hand upon his shoulder. Yes, the world wins by fighting harder, but heaven wins by laying it down. The breaking is the birthing. The boy embraced him sobbing, and the people wept aloud, holding one another, wrapped in the white light. The light continued to fall, but now it no longer blinded. It was soft like arms that embrace. Elias rose, lifted the Bible high, and declared, "This is the final step, not striving but surrendering, not control but peace. The world shakes, but we will not. For we have surrendered into the arms of the one who commands the storm." The people cried out in one voice like heaven's own song, "We surrender, we are yours." And in that moment the world shook no more. Peace covered everything, not the peace of the sword, but the peace of total surrender. Elias smiled, his eyes ablaze. We have taken the final step, and now we are unshakable. Part 10, Unshakable. The pure white light still covered the land, but now it was soft warm, like a great cloak wrapping the people. No more wind, no more trembling earth, no more lurking shadows. Only holy peace filled the air. The villagers fell to their knees, hands lifted high, tears mingling with smiles. They no longer prayed in despair, but in victory. Eyes once filled with fear now shone bright, washed clean by fire and tears. At the center, Elias stood tall. Light radiated from him, not the light of the sun, but the light from within, like a lighthouse guiding lost souls home. Suddenly, behind Elias, a towering figure appeared. Gabriel, the angel of God, spread his mighty wings of light across the sky. Every beat of his wings released 1,000 rays, and the people gazed upward in awe and holy fear. Gabriel spoke no word, yet his presence alone gave strength. His eyes met Elias's, a final confirmation. His journey was complete, and he had stood. Elias lifted the Bible-high voice, resounding, "Father, you have shaken us, refined us, separated us, and called us, and now we stand unshakable." The people cried out, voices like thunder, "We are unshakable, we are yours forever." The sound rolled across mountains and valleys like a trumpet of heaven declaring eternal victory. Far across the cosmos, the tempter screamed one last time. He clawed at the remnants of shadow, but they vanished like smoke in the wind. No, this cannot be. They were mine, but his cry dissolved, drowned in the flood of praise. He had no place left to hide, no chains left to hold. His power was shattered by a people who had surrendered and become unshakable. A child ran to Elias, looking up with innocent eyes. "Does this mean we will never suffer again?" Elias knelt, smiling through tears. "No, child. Storms will come, tears will fall, but suffering will not shake you anymore, for you stand upon the rock that cannot be moved." The child embraced him. Others came surrounding Elias, touching his radiant cloak as if drawing infinite comfort. The sun rose on the horizon, its golden glow merging with heaven's pure white light. All creation bowed in reverence. Birds sang, winds stilled, mountains stood silent. Gabriel spread his wings once more, lifting the people's cry to heaven. In that radiance, Elias looked less like a man and more like an eternal beacon guiding generations yet to come. He turned to the people, his voice deep yet tender. "Remember this day. The world will shake again. Darkness will try to return. But you are unshakable, not because of your strength, but because of his love." The people fell to their knees, singing a holy hymn. never written yet, echoing from the depths of their souls. Elias looked upward. Gabriel's wings covered them like an everlasting roof. In that moment, Elias knew the journey was not the end, but the foundation had been laid forever. He whispered, lips trembling, eyes blazing, "We are chosen, we are surrendered, we are unshakable." The light enveloped them all. The story did not end. It opened into a new age, the age of the unshakable. The scene shifted. No mountains, no deserts, no storms, only heaven's vast expanse of light, like an endless sea of white. In the midst of it, Elias stood still. His silver hair gleamed, his eyes reflecting the glory of heaven. Lines of years remained on his face, but only peace rested there. He lifted his head, whispering, "I am chosen." Around him, the community of the chosen knelt, hands raised in prayer. Their tears flowed, but not of sorrow, of release. The mother who once lost a son smiled, for she had seen resurrection. The father, once in despair, pressed a hand to his chest, knowing his family was still in God's hands. The children, once afraid, now sang boldly, their voices pure like an angelic choir. Together they whispered, "We are chosen." The words rose like incense, like heaven's trumpet. Elias stepped forward into the brilliance Bible raised high, his voice like heaven's own. "Do you see now? The shaking was not to destroy you. The fire was not to consume you. The silence was not to abandon you. Every battle, every tear, every scar, they all prepared you for this. You are chosen." His eyes swept over them, burning with love. Not forgotten, not forsaken, not lost, but chosen from the beginning until the end. A boy stepped forward, trembling. "Elias, what if I fail again? What if I stumble?" Elias embraced him, whispering, "Then you will rise again." Being chosen does not mean never falling. It means never being abandoned. Even in the fall, you are his. The people wept. Their tears mingled with praise, a river of release washing away every fear. Heaven's light draped over them like a white robe. Elias stretched his arms wide, smiling with peace. In that moment, he was no longer just a man, but the symbol of a people unshakable. A voice thundered from heaven, "Well done, my faithful one. You are chosen." The community sang, "We are chosen forever and ever, we are chosen." Their song rose beyond the clouds, joining with angels, a never-ending Amen. Elias opened his eyes one last time. He saw his people faces shining with eternal light. Tears fell not of sorrow, but of joy fulfilled. He whispered his final words, a message to them and to the world: "You are chosen, and nothing will ever change that." The light surged, embracing all, and the story closed not with an ending, but with a beginning. A people who would live forever as the chosen, forever unshakable.